That's right. You've joined the Indie Show tonight, and we got a great special guest. And we're not going to believe this a whole lot much longer. That is something that we were working on in the studio, a riff that I came up with, and the guys joined in on it, and we put that together. And I just thought I'd play that clip for you tonight. We got a little bit of internet issues going on tonight, but we're going to work through those. We'll see what happens. But we've got a great special guest for you tonight, Rik Emmett, longtime member of the band Triumph Power Trio, and a whole bunch of solo career music that has allowed him to explore his artistic boundaries, which seemed limitless. And I know he's looking to explore more. Without further ado, here he is. Hey, Rik.
Hi, Ken.
How's it going?
It's going all right. What's up with you tonight? You know, the internet and digital technology, they're not exactly my best friends, so of course, your viewers are now seeing me in a very, very old-fashioned kind of picture, and that's because I'm on a Hewlett-Packard, which is from before the Crimean War. So it does. It has a little technical. So the camera is not that fuzzy, but whatever. In the background here, you can see I have your viewers might be interested in this. This is a stage pass for Spinal Tap. So kind of what my technology is like. It's very Spinal Tap this evening.
It might be because your camera seems to be focusing on things on your shelf behind you there. When you sit back, you seem to come a little more into focus. It's so weird. But anyway, We'll work through this, and the audio was excellent. So we're going to treat this like a true podcast in a way. And sometimes your face comes in really, really clear, so it looks like I'm looking at you from the distance, and you're coming in a little bit clearer as we go along.
Ken, let me explain this to you too. The neighborhood that I live in, I'm close to Lake Ontario, and there's no commercial buildings. Like, it's a very suburban residential kind of neighborhood. So there's no place for, and I'm with Bell. It doesn't matter who I would be with, Bell, Rogers, whatever. Their resurfacing towers are miles away, and there's none to the south. So you can only go west, east, or north from here to get to it. So consequently, when you go on Wi-Fi here, like it's crappy quality. So that
limitations of technology. Yeah, well, we're not much better off here, Rik. Internet here is still a bit weird, and sometimes we're very pixelated here too. So it's not unique.
You're clear now, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something here. So you refer in your book, you say, my life has always had quite a psychological gumbo. Parboiling away, the spotlight became an addiction that fed my self-worth, and it wasn't until I retired that I finally outgrew it. Yet here I am writing a memoir, trading one spotlight for another.
Yep. Yeah, I wrote that. Yeah. Is there a question coming?
It's profound. I mean, it's a profound statement. I mean, that is a statement encompassing some things that are complicated about your life, right? I mean, you've led a very interesting life to date. Some would call it the road less traveled in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously, there's not a lot of folks that get to a point where they get to call themselves a rock star, And I mean, I always felt like rock star was a kind of there was something ironic about it, really. How many people that become rock stars stand in front of the mirror and kind of look in the mirror and go, "Hey, rock star," Like it's like there's just something a little bit goofy about it. I saw Ray Romano the other night on Jimmy Kimmel, and he told a joke about he lost his flashlight in bed. He has a flashlight that he uses to read in bed, and he lost it and he woke up and he couldn't find it. He's looking around, he's going around the house, and he's an old guy like me. He's getting, like, where is this thing? It's driving him crazy. And then he finally finds it. It's in his underwear, and he didn't feel it in his underwear. So then he did a bit about going to an airport and going through customs, and because he hadn't felt the flashlight, so he might have got dressed and gone to the airport to go to a gig, and he's going through customs, and they go, "Sir, you have a weapon in your underwear," and he goes, "Oh well, I wouldn't exactly call it a weapon." The way he delivered the line, it was so self-effacing, kind of, phony, humble, and then I go, that's like rock stars, rock stars are always kind of like, oh, I gotta be phony humble, yes, I'm a rock star, well, I'm a rock star. I find it kind of it was always a little ironic for me. So I think the part that you read out loud there about the being in a kind of a psychological gumbo, it's because I think of myself as a creative artist. That's really what I am. So I play guitar, I write songs, I'm writing books now, I write poetry. These are the things that I do. And obviously, at some point, you're trying to reach the public, and you want people to like you. You want to be accepted. That's no different than when you're a little kid and you're doing things for mommy's approval. But now you're doing it as a grown adult. And now here I am. I'm coming on Ken's show, and I'm going, "Hey, everybody. I hope you like me. I hope you like the work I did. I hope you buy my book." And there's something that's very surreal about all of that. It's a bizarre thing. Like, here I am sitting in my office in my studio, and I'm talking to some guy that's on the West Coast, East Coast, and I'm I'm using technology even though I hate it. So there's this constant kind of I would say it's like a gumbo. It's like parboiling away. It's this weird, messy kind of thing where you're gonna go, okay, well, this is life. It's chaotic. It's a mess. You got to embrace it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there is that whole piece to it, and the thing is that you when you wrote that, it becomes this whole idea of looking back in some ways at my life, things that have gone on, things that have happened that have brought me to where I'm at. And then at one point, I know you make a reference of being in the circus, or at least on the Midway.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the reason for writing a book, a memoir, is to try and make it so that it would be of value to some people. They would be able to see themselves in it, or, I mean, there's large chunks of the book later that are about, how to write songs, and, how to be a musician. And, some people are going to look at a memoir and go, this is not what I bargained for. I wanted to hear gossip about things that happen backstage at Triumph shows. That's what I expect from a rock star memoir. And they're going to get mine, and they're going to go, man, this guy, he's like, I've had friends say to me, Rik, you're such a teacher. You're going off into teacher mode all the time. And I go, well, I spent longer being a teacher than I did being in Triumph, so that's me. That's my life. And as a teacher, there is a sort of a thing of, you are trying to make life better for folks, I mean, even the songs that I wrote when I was in Triumph, there was an awful lot of them that were sort of motivational, inspirational kinds of songs about holding on to your dreams and fighting the good fight and never surrendering and all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that you would say, oh, I'm reading this thing and I'm going, oh, there's things I relate to here. There's things that happened in your life. I'm hoping that'll happen. I'm hoping that happens for a lot of folks, that they relate to it, and that they go, yeah, geez. In some ways, I hope it's a cautionary tale. If a young person reads it, I hope they'll read it and go, oh boy, good thing you told me about that. I want to avoid that.
Well, I mean, the cautionary lifestyle in there as well. I mean, there's a learning in there. There's things that happen, but there's also a ton of life experience, lived experience, things that we sometimes take for granted. That lived experience that we have that we can share with other people, and maybe it helps them. Maybe it doesn't help them. Maybe it helps them to cope with whatever life is throwing at them.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope. I mean, I'm actually working on a new book. I've just submitted the manuscript to my editor at ECW Press, and it's called 10 Telecaster Tales. And there was a section I was writing today about this very thing, about the motivation of writing a piece, and how as a guitar player. There's an intellectual process that begins, and it's like I think I want to write a song about this, or I want to write a guitar piece about this, and then there's this technical physical thing that happens where it's like, okay, so now my brain needs to talk to my body and say, well, this voicing here on the neck and these notes, or no, then I want to go here. So then it becomes this, my brain has to talk to my body and make this stuff happen. But you have this intellectual and then physical thing. And then it leads to an emotional thing, which is, how am I going to make this come alive so that the first time that somebody hears it, they'll have an emotional reaction to what it is that I do, So that emotional thing, I go, where does my emotion come from and why? I'm emotionally motivated by the fact that, and essentially it comes down to me, the three abiding graces. You've got faith, hope, and love. And love is the one that's the strongest thing of all. And in the book today, I realized, and I was writing and rewriting and revising, and I put a line in there. I said, even when I get angry, it's because my love is being frustrated. That's what makes me get angry, is that love and faith and hope, these things that I consider to be graceful, virtuous things, they're being frustrated. That's why almost everything I do springs from love. That's the emotion that's at the base of everything. And I think that's a very human, common thing. I think that's true of everybody.
Yeah, and I mean the thing about love is that love is a strong emotion, right?
Yes.
It's one of the probably one of the most powerful emotions. But love is also, like a lot of other things in our life, loving is a choice.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think our emotions lead us to the idea of, well, I wrote a song a long time ago on an album called Good Faith, and I talked about the chorus came. The song was called Ask, and the chorus was like, it's a question of want, it's a question of need, it's a question of what you choose to believe, and that to me kind of sums up what motivates us. And even if you're motivated by the dark side, like at some point he's crossed over to the dark side. Ken is now very angry. Why is Ken angry? My theory is that you're angry because the things that you would prefer to choose, which would be love and happiness and those kinds of things, somehow that's being frustrated and you're not getting the chance to do it. And so now the emotion turns and it's like, well, how do I get what I want? I guess I'll have to fight for it. I guess I'll have to go to war. It's like Ukrainians and Russians they're at war because what they've chosen, the choices they've made about want and need are diametrically opposed. Palestinians and Israelis, they can't make choices that can make each other happy, because what they've decided they want and need is exactly the opposite of what the other guys want and need. And so we come into conflict. It's a very human thing. But all of those choices of want and need, they're based on love. That's what they're searching for. Everybody chooses their God and says, this is the God I want. This is the way I'm going. This ends up sounding very, highfalutin, but it's not really. It's pretty straightforward stuff.
There's definitely some philosophical stuff in there, and a lot of sort of, some sort of existential sort of ideals in there as well. I mean, when we think about the choices we make and where those choices lead us, and you talk about that in your book. You talk about the choices that you and other people in your life made, and what those choices did, or how those choices impacted their lives.
Yeah, I mean, let's bring this back to some fundamental things, and then we'll get back to what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I'm having the conversation about, what should the title of the memoir be? So we're having this conversation with editors and people at ECW, and they go, "Well, Rik, a rock star memoir really." The title of your most successful song makes a very good title for your memoir. It'll help it from a marketing point of view, blah blah blah. And I go, okay, and I don't mind that idea, because the most successful song, the most recognizable tune, the one that makes me the most money from my SOCAN check, is "Lay It on the Line." And the thing that I like about that is, what is it? How are you going to define the word "it" in the cliche line, "Lay it on the line"? And in the song, it's honesty. And so this search for truth and honesty, yeah, it's going to end up getting you into philosophy. It's going to end up getting you into these things that, they are complicated, but really it's because you're just searching for this fundamental thing, which is, I want to be honest. I want it to be truthful. I don't want bullshit in my life, So I want to lay it on the line so that I can make it be straightforward. Of course, believe me when I tell you, and your viewers and listeners, when you try to be honest, it's hard, because a lot of people, they don't want to hear the truth. I mean, what it's like to be in a band and you're trying to get along when everybody's egos are pushing in different directions. Everybody starts having their own truth, and their truth is not your truth. They got their kids at home. You've got yours. I saw Lars the other day. He was on. I didn't see him. I heard him on Smartless. The podcast with Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and those guys. So, and he was talking about the fact that at a certain point, Metallica, when they first got together, they're just a bunch of teenage kids in their, or in their 20s, and it's all about, hey, we're rock stars. We want to be rock stars. Hey, we want to go to the gig. We want to play our songs. That's all that matters. And then, then we want to get high. Like, those are the two things that matter. We want to play our songs. We want to get really successful. Then we want to get high. And then life goes on. And then they get married, and then they got kids, and they're sitting and having a band meeting. And one guy's going, Lars, I want to have that weekend off because it's my kid's birthday. And he's going, we can't take that weekend off. That's the Memorial Day weekend. We're going to make more money than we've ever made in the history of the band. We've got, so these tensions and these things arise because everybody's truth has become different, and
yeah. And of course, if you're in it for the fame and the money, then the business needs always outweigh the needs of everything else, which is unfortunate, because it comes at odds, doesn't it?
Yeah, and to Lars' credit, and the guys in Metallica, at a certain point, they decided they better go to like a psychiatrist and have counseling together in order to try and figure out, how do we keep this thing going? And I mean, look at it, the history of bands. There's not too many that last very long, like the U2, the Stones, obviously, but really the Stones, it's had a shifting kind of a thing. That's really just Mick and Keith,
Yeah.
But there's not too many bands that last a long, long time. Metallica is now one of them, and they've had to go for counseling in order to try and keep it together and make it happen.
And they've had their crash and burns. I mean, there's been some crash and burns in their career. Those guys haven't had it easy as far as a rock and roll band is concerned. I mean, James has got some of his own skeletons he's dealing with. I mean,
exactly.
It's not It's never easy. And the thing is that you talked about that in the book. You said it was never for sex and drugs. But the rock and roll. I was definitely in it for the play of it all, for the love of music.
Yeah.
And that drives you today, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. And I think part of that is always trying to keep the sort of the kid in me that just loved music for its own sake. And I just love to play. Like, if my body had been a bigger, stronger body, if my bones hadn't got broken when I was playing sports, I might have ended up being in sports, just because I loved playing so much. I just loved the moment of, running in the outfield. Here's the ball, it's flying through the air, and I'm chasing it down, and it's gonna, if I time it right, the ball is gonna land in my glove, and I'm going to have this incredible feeling of it being alive in the moment, And when you make music, it has that same quality of being alive in the moment, So, that's something I hope I never outgrow. I hope I can always get extremely high aesthetic pleasure from the making of music, from writing a book, from coming up with a story. And
you froze up.
Builds the fascination for me. I did not, I didn't want to become rich and famous. I wanted to be a player. Not a player in music.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as you say that, and you talk about that, that was to me a huge statement about your earlier years into the world of rock and playing rock music, and even your idea how it shifted over time. I mean, you went into a band situation early on in your career that was kind of impossible from the very beginning, because you guys had creative differences right from the start.
Yeah, I mean, when you start a band, and I know that you've probably been in the room when this is happening, willing to make any kind of compromise in order to try to get the ball rolling, and in order to, I college students all the time, look, you have so you're willing to do anything to get yourself a pot. And then once you pot, you go, all right, we got a pot. And then the next thing is, we need a bigger pot. Let's get a bigger pot. So, so that's the way it plays. But then, of course, when people start to get to the point where they go, well, I was wanting something out of this, and in the case of Triumph, the drummer there, and he really wants to be the singer. He really wants to front the band. It's his band, really. And from a business point of view, he's kind of the general manager, and he really wants it to be his band. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, I can see this, where this is going, and if I become successful, if I write a song and it gets on the radio, and then they're going, hey, Rik, we love your song, you're singing. Radio is going, hey, Rik, we love your voice, we love your singing. Inside the band, I'm going, uh-oh. Because this is going to become something that creates tension eventually. The cracks are there. And as you say, they were there right kind of from the beginning. Like I was doing an interview today, I was talking to somebody, I was saying, when we first got together, and the guy that was interviewing me, he knew Mike Levine fairly well. He'd met Mike many times, interviewed him, been at Toronto parties and things, and he knew Mike very well. And he was saying, even when I saw the band live back in the day, I could tell that you were a different kind of a guy than Mike. And in my mind, I didn't say this when I was doing the interview, but I'm saying this to you now. In my mind, I'm going, yeah, that's because Mike didn't really want to be like a musician to do music stuff. He wanted to be a musician because he loved making deals, and he loved marketing, and he loved promotion. He kind of really loved the record business, and he loved the radio business, and he loved being a part of that, you know? And I didn't give a shit about that. He was a great partner to have. Like, it made for a great partnership. Were things that, you know, they weren't my style at all, you know. Right. But if you came and you saw the band and you saw the band playing, you'd probably go, well, the bass player, sometimes he doesn't seem like he's really, really into it. Bass doesn't seem to be just, you know, he kind of seems to be, you know, have fun as a rock star, but he's not necessarily like a musician that's, whereas, you know, you came to see a Triumph show, you'd see me out there with a classical guitar playing something that was, you know, I asked to have to play, you know, because right. That was what really mattered to me. So the differences were there right from the beginning. Absolutely.
Yeah. You had another saying in there, another piece I want to talk about in there. It says, at the core of showbiz, we're just out to give people a good time, provide recreation, but my work in this life also remains a search for personal balance, as I'm much a product of sorrow and disappointment, as I have been a grateful husband and family man who had a rock star career. Obliged to my cynicism as much to my positivity, I've always tried to be as aware of my humility and ambition. In the end, the way we live our lives reveals the depth of our questioning and understanding. Curiosity, a rock and roll life led me to that. That's a profound statement, my friend. That speaks volumes to me.
Well, I'm glad that it does. You know, that's why I wrote it, hoping that it would speak volumes to people. And, you know, I'm grateful. I'm happy that, you know, you're telling me this. It's kind of weird to have your words come back at you and go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I wrote that. Yeah, I said that. But I mean, the whole idea of balance to me, it's a critical thing. It's that, you know, I think in the end, my humility is much more important to my happiness in my life than my ambition or my ego, from that, you know, the rock star successful thing. I need to always remember that's not the main thing. That should never get out of balance with the fact that, you know, I should always be trying, for example, to be in service to my children and to be in service to my wife and to have my wife be happy that, you know, I started dinner, that I washed the dishes, that I, you know, my wife said that at one time that, you know, what makes me the happiest, you know, what turns me on the most, she said. And I went, no, honey, what turns you on the most? She goes, when I see you wearing rubber gloves and washing the kitchen floor.
Mine is when I'm down on my hands and knees, vacuuming around the dining room chairs to get rid of the golden retriever fur.
That's it. See, that's it. And you know, you got to be humble about those things. You can't really you can't be looking at yourself in the rubber gloves and going, "Yeah, I'm a rock star."
Oh man. Oh. Like I said, there's so many things in your book that spoke to me in terms of, you know, things that happened to me. Sean actually sent in a couple of questions for you tonight. So I'm going to see if I can load them up here and play the one for you. I just got to pull it out of our local videos here, and hopefully we got it. And we'll see. Maybe not. Oh, there we go.
Technology.
Here it is. Here it is. I found one. Here's one. Right, so tonight on here, Rik, you have to say, okay. Well, Sean's going to say it right here. You have to repeat after him, and we're going to catch this on video tonight. Here it is.
Well, hey, Rik, saw your post about ringing the bell. Congrats there, sir, and hope everything is going well. Question for you, because I can't be here tonight, but thanks a lot for doing this once again. So if you were to talk to, I guess, a young guitar player now about what they need to do, I guess, to succeed in the business, because the business has changed certainly from when you got into the way things are now. What would you impart? What would you coach? What would you teach or talk to a young guitar player about in terms of the business and how to succeed? Thanks, my friend.
So there you have it.
Okay. Well, fortunately, I did write much stuff like this in my book, so I'm well schooled and ready to answer that question. First of all, I should say that I have absolutely no idea about the modern music business. Like, it has changed so much, and it continues to change at the speed of light, which is to say, flowing through fiber optic cable. That's the rate of change in the world today. So I can't keep up with that. I honestly can't. I can't even get a nice clear picture on the Indie TUNZ show. So never mind give advice to young people that are trying to break into the business, streaming and file sharing. And I will say this, though, and I think this is good advice. If you, and I'm going to paraphrase it, Steve Swall, a bass player, Jack, once said, if you want to be in the music business, don't, because it's horrible. It'll ruin you. It'll fracture your soul and destroy all those things. I'm embellishing. But he said, if you want to, but if you have to be in, go ahead. It's going to be a wonderful life. And I think that's it encapsulates it, which in the way to say that if you have to write music and you have to be around it and you have to make it, I would say my advice would be then be true to yourself and try to do exactly what makes you feel like you're being your best you. Do that. This is not shattering advice. If you watch, any episode of and judges are going to sit there and pontificate and say, look, I need you to voice. I need you to be you. Yeah, you can sing a cover song. Okay, that's fine. But I want to hear you coming through that. I don't want to hear you just being a parrot or being a digital recorder. I want your person. So that's the challenge for everybody all the time. That's the challenge for you, and that's the challenge for me, and that's the challenge for the 14-year-old kid that's in his first basement band. That's the challenge for Lars Ulrich. It will always be the challenge for all those artists. I once had a student, anecdote here, and she was in my class, and she had flunked the music business course, and literally the dean of the program kind of came to me and said, look, trouble student, Rick, this is going to be your problem now. See if you can figure this person out. And I could tell that she was like extremely motivated and really ambitious. And it just so happened that there was a David Bowie kind of thing that was going on at the local museum or art gallery maybe. And it was like this traveling show that was a whole retrospective about Bowie's career. And I said to her, I want you to go to that show. And I want you to absorb every possible lesson you can get from an artist like David Bowie, because I think it really applies to somebody like you. And then here, this is what the Ontario government says is the way to write a business marketing plan. So I want you to go away. I don't even care if you come to my class. I don't give a shit. I don't care if you do any of my assignments through the course of the year. But at the end of this term, I want you to give me a marketing business plan based on your band, based on what you've learned from going to see David Bowie's thing. And so that's what she did. She came to every class in any case because she was engaged. She wanted to be there and she wanted to learn, which is the best kind of student to have. And at the end of the term, when she gave me her assignment, it was brilliant, and I gave her like 93, like she had first class honors, and she still has an ongoing career. She's been at the Junos, she's in a band called the Monowhales, and so shout out to Sally. And all the other people in the band, they've been in my class too. So, yeah, I think that's a good story to answer the question of, what should you do? And I'm going, well, I want you to be yourself.
How rewarding is that for you to see that, though, to see a young person embrace those principles that you're trying to, to get out there to people, and she embraces it? I mean, how rewarding is that for you? It's got to be terrifically rewarding.
It is, yes, and I don't want to make it sound like it's about me, though, because in the end it wasn't. All I really was a kind of a catalyst. I was somebody that helped her turn on the light bulb above her own head.
A conduit.
Yeah. And with good students, that's almost always what it is. They already possess this thing, and all you're doing is just trying to facilitate it, just trying to be a resource to help them make it happen. And so
you're just feeding them the juice from the rock and roll machine, brother.
yeah, there is that. Yes. And I mean, in truth, part of the thing is I'm the guy, been there, done that guy. So with faculty meetings, like, walking down the hall, they're being about it as I am, that yes, I've been there and I've done that. So it lends a certain air of credibility to when I get up on my hind legs and start barking, they go, okay, that dog knows what he's talking about. He's been there, he's done it. So
lived experience, and I think there's that lightning rod sort of thing going on there as well. I'm going to put you on full screen here because I want you to say something right now to a friend of ours. Her name is Michelle Ryder, and all I want you to say is, "Lie to me, Michelle Ryder."
Okay. Michelle Ryder. Lie to me, Michelle Ryder.
Lie to me, Michelle Ryder.
Yeah, I can do it. Shut up.
Okay.
Michelle Ryder. Lie to me, Michelle Ryder. Lie to me.
Right on. That is awesome, man. Thank you for doing that. So we have an indie artist on our label. She's coming out with a new song called "Lie to Me," and our friend Sean McKenna plays the drums on that track.
All right. Well, I wish them the best of luck, and I hope it goes well. And it's a long row. It's a long row to hoe, but yeah. I wish them all the best.
No doubt about that. I mean, now here's another thing. So here's an interesting excerpt from the book, and I laughed when I read this one. This is about your foray in a glam band. So in the summer of '74, both my parents came to see me play in the glam rock band Justin Page at the backstage lounge of the Seaway Hotel. I remember the Seaway down on Lakeshore West. It's now a condo. That's right. They watched me in my provocative stage costume, full Alice Cooper makeup with the family that's Family 31 suffered white gloved hand cupping my package over a black leotard. The volume must have terrified them. Justin wore a lot of chains, a garter belt, and thigh-high boots, and little else. And the two background singers were wearing chastity belts. The whole show was about counterculture, gay behavior, loaded with references to drugs and booze. I'm sure my parents were gobsmacked by it all, but that's the part that got me laughing. But the job was full-time, and they were supportive, as I was already a ticket on the rock music career carnival midway.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been a huge culture shock for my parents. I mean, my mom was a religious, sang in the church choir, and when I was a kid, she would take me to choir practices, and it was what got me into singing. So ungodly, the way that I told the story, that was, that room was a large surface, no drapes or curtains anywhere, no rugs. So it was that room once we're playing, and with their laughter, they were sort of, they went with it. The that was 1974. In 4 years, I was going to be on the stage at Maple Leaf Gardens. And
that's right. That's
when I think on
right.
that, yeah, when I thought, I go, that's amazing that there was this, that really on the midway, like a rocket sled kind of room that happened from that moment in that place, playing for my mom and dad until, sort of arriving at a point with Triumph where I'd made it, and made it in a, there I am. I'd made it in a way that it was going to sort of last me for a lifetime, This wouldn't have, what we're looking at now, but
scarred for a lifetime comes to mind on that.
Yeah, but you know what? There's that whole thing of if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, right? Like, I think sometimes scars are things that you have to say, I earned that. I'm not, like I saw Jodie Foster was talking about, actresses and actors and people in show business that get a lot of work done, she was saying, I'd rather have somebody look at me and say, she's got a lot of miles on that. Like she's gone down a lot of dusty roads, as opposed to saying, ooh, she's gone and had a lot of work done, which you could have that, somebody say that behind your back. But I'm not really from the Jodie Foster school. I would much rather be looking at my scars and going, I earned these, like fair and square. And I'm proud of them. This is who I am.
Now I'm sorry. There's a Justin Page.
This is where I've been.
Justin Page album.
Same.
Definitely. There's a Justin Page album out there somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't that good. It was all right. It was a lucky thing for me to be able to have the opportunity. I honestly thought I was going to get more to do that record, but the Lee DiCarlo and Dick Wagner and Steve Hunter, the guys from Alice Cooper, down in Detroit, and they played on the record. And maybe it wasn't Hunter, maybe it was just Wagner, but I thought I was going to get to play some lead parts and stuff. I only got to play rhythm guitars and acoustic guitars. I never got to play any of the lead solos. And it was one of the reasons why I kind of went, I think I'm going to leave. I think I'm going to get out of the band. They really only see me as a kind of a sideman in a bar band. They don't really see me as something that they're building the band around. And I wouldn't blame them for that. It's, Justin at the time was being managed by kind of rich guys they cobbled together this deal with Capitol Records in Canada, and it was their journey. It wasn't mine. I was just somebody that they, hired to sit in one of the seats in the back of the van,
Right. You do you listen to much music? Like music, not much music, but music itself?
Yeah. I I do, but not as much as I think other folks would think I do. And when I do listen to music, like for example, when I'm in my car, I really only ever listen to the jazz radio station or the classical station, or maybe CBC for, and other than that, no, I don't listen to music very much. Around the house, my wife plays. She's got Spotify and she's got the Bluetooth speaker, and so when we're sitting having dinner, sometimes she'll play music. She's got lots of playlists, so I hear stuff from her. And of course, every now and then I'll have interaction with a guy like you, or former students of mine. They'll send me links and they'll go, hey, did you? I mean, when I was teaching at the college, I would get my ass kicked all the time with new music, because you've got 20-year-olds sitting in your class going, hey, have you heard Fleet Foxes? And I go, no, Fleet Foxes, never heard of Fleet Foxes. Oh, well, you got to hear this, So, and that was, we're talking, I don't know, 15 years ago, that kind of stuff. So I'm not current in any way, but I mean, there's stuff you can't avoid, right? The Grammys, Billy Joel plays his new song, and I go, oh, geez, that's pretty good for a guy that hasn't written a song in like 19 years. That's pretty good,
There's a song that I'm going to challenge you to listen to sometime. It's called Vagabond Bones.
I'm going to write this down.
By a band called. Okay.
Yeah, I'm writing it down. Go ahead.
It's called Vagabond Bones.
Yeah.
By Helix.
Okay.
Check it out sometime. It describes that whole, circus sort of lifestyle, living out of your suitcase, living on the road kind of thing that was part of the whole rock and roll thing. And it's an interesting take on it because of the way the lyrics are written in the song, and it's a nice heavy hitting rock tune too.
All right.
So I kind of liked it, and it reminded me of that passage in your book. There's just so much that you and I could talk about in terms of the fullness of your life and what's happening. I mean, you talked about in the book, that if it could shit on you anymore, the universe could shit on you more, because you had so many things happen in a short period of time in your life, over a decade of trials and tribulations. I mean, life for you has not always been easy either.
No. I mean, I think sometimes folks pick up they're in a bookstore and they decide to pick up a rock star memoir and buy it because they would take it home and read it, because they're sort of hoping for vicarious, imagine these really cool, great things, they never happened to me in my life. But when I was writing the book, I felt like it was important for me to make sure that I was not feeding into the Disney fantasy of show business, that what I was doing was saying, well, you still have to, it's the old thing, about you put your pants on one leg at a time. And, I think my mom once said to me something along the lines of, well, the queen sits on the toilet too, I went, yeah, I guess she has to. Yeah, I guess she does, And I think that sometimes that's what it's good to remind people about, that if you are lucky enough to live long enough, you're going to see your siblings pass away, or your parents are going to die. You're going to see your siblings pass away. I've seen all of this, so you get to see the heartbreaking side of life. I mean, my wife and I, one of our goddaughters, passed away from a drug reaction. And it was one of the saddest things that could possibly happen, not to us, but to her parents, to have your child predecease you. But you're witnessing this and you're experiencing this. And so there's got to be, what are you going to get from it? You're hoping you're going to get some wisdom. You're hoping you're going to get some kind of something that helps you balance out your life and go, okay, you want to screw with me, life? Go ahead. I can take it. I've figured out how to get back up. Knock me down. I will get back up again, and I will stand on my own 2 feet, and I will balance myself, and I will handle it. You know, and it's not easy. It's really hard, but that's life. That's, you know, here's something that it's in the book, and this is a story I love to tell. You know, I do it in half my interviews at least. The greatest hitter ever in the history of baseball was a guy named Ty Cobb, and he hit .367 as a lifetime batting average. He was a mean son of a bitch human being, but he was the greatest hitter of all time. And maybe he was the greatest hitter because he was a mean son of a bitch. Who knows? But he's not the kind of human being you'd want to have as a friend. You know, I don't think he had any friends. Nevertheless, he was still unsuccessful as a hitter more than 6 times out of 10, which is to say life is about feeling. He's as good as it gets. The average hitter in the Hall of Fame in baseball hits 305. That's the average, lifetime average of all the guys that are in the Hall of Fame. You could be in the major leagues. If you can hit over 250, you can make millions and millions of dollars. That's 2.5 hits out of 10. Right? If you get to 2 hits out of 10, you might lose your job. So this is the margin of error you've got between 2 out of 10 and 3 out of 10. At 2 out of 10, you lose your gig. At 3 out of 10, you're in the Hall of Fame. And that's the life lesson I like to leave everybody with. Like, you're going to experience failure more often than success. You're going to experience loss more often than you're going to experience victory. And I was in a band called Triumph, and I can tell you, we experienced loss more than we experienced success. That's how it works. But, you know, get back up on your feet and go, all right, what else you got?
Dust yourself off and move on. You know, there's so many things that we can talk about. The book is called Lay It on the Line, and if you don't have a copy of it, you should get a copy of it. It's available wherever books are sold. You should get a copy of that book. It's a well-written, I don't know, rock memoir. I think the cool thing about it is that it's not your standard rock memoir. I mean, it really is thought-provoking. And I really think that was your idea when you decided to write the book.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, I mean, here we are. It's been out since October, and we're in a whole new year, and you and I are talking about it. And the reason that we're doing it is because the book has got some legs now. And I think the reason that the book's got some legs is because it wasn't just this thing that I went, you know, hope that sells. Like, I went, no. I'm going to try to write a book that has some meat on the bones, you know, that it's going to be a book that can keep giving. And I think people read it, and you know, most of the people I do interviews with, I go, man, I was so surprised. It's not what I expected.
It's not what anyone would expect for a rock memoir. But the thing is that it's a recipe on a life lived, and you know, it's not a perfect recipe, and you're showing that. And I love the vulnerability that you share with people. You know, even some other things that we can't even get into tonight because we're running out of time. But there are so many other things, and like I say, I do want to have you back on the show, and we'll figure out the iPhone thing so that we can get past the technology. But I really do want to have you back, Rik, because there's just so many questions that your book brings to mind, and I really think that viewers would be inspired by what you've written in the book, and it might help them through some really dark times in their life.
Thank you. And you're very kind. I really appreciate the things that you're saying, and I would be happy to come back anytime and talk about my book.
Well, there's some other stuff I want to talk to you about. So if you have a few minutes after the show, I just want to quickly run a couple of things by you.
Sure.
We got about 3 more minutes. One more thing I wanted to talk to you about, and we're going to save the best for last. And her name is Jeanette Ann. Yeah, big smile comes to the face there. I mean, you say some wonderful things about Jeanette and her role in your life, and the fact that even when you met her, your head was not in a place where you could even appreciate her when you first met her. And at some point in time, she became one of the hugest assets in your life and one of the grounding things that keeps you grounded and helps you with your compass.
Yes. Yeah. I the greatest blessing of my life is her. And I mean, we're working on 49 years together now. So, and she still is, surprises me kind of every day, inspires me and motivates me, kicks my ass. Like she's going to go to, Nairobi in Kenya on a safari this year. Like,
oh,
I'm
wow.
not going, but that's the picture's spirit she's got. And she goes 2 or 3 times a week to the local animal shelter, and she hears. Yeah, she's something else, man. And I'm
Wow.
so lucky, so blessed, that I get to share my life with her. And well, we have 4 kids, and now we got 4 grandkids, and we got another one away. So family has always been the most, like, even all of the rock star things that I did, all that career oriented, I was doing it because I wanted to make nice big paychecks and bring them home for my family, so my family could have a great life, so that Jeanette could have a great life. Now, I think I made sometimes that I would be putting the career ahead of the amount of time and energy that family deserved. I try to talk about that, that,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is a sort of a, old world patriarchal kind of thing that we do end up being the men. I think it's starting to happen now in the same that they start to put too much pressure on themselves in terms of the work that they do and the career that they have, when really the best things that you've got are often the things that are they're right there. You just need to spend time with the people that you love, and you need to be in that moment and be present. And that was a big mistake that I made. Who wants to live with regret? I don't want to live with regret. But if I have, that's one of my big ones. That I didn't spend enough time and energy. Chance. Like, your kids are only young for a short period of time. And I was away on the road a lot, and I was in the studio a lot, and I was writing songs, and I was going, don't bug me. Your dad is a rock star and he's writing songs, and that's important. And you go, yeah, now I look back on it, I go, maybe it wasn't that important. Maybe it was more important that I should have been there more for them. So, that's in my book. That's a cautionary tale.
Put those rubber gloves on more often.
That's a good one. Yes, indeed.
I think you should put those rubber gloves on at least a couple, 3 times a week anyway.
Okay.
And as we depart tonight, did you want to share anything about, you got a whole bunch of other stuff that's coming out too. You've got some merch stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, there's a compilation album that's like right on the cusp. I think it's shipping. It probably started shipping this week. It's called Diamonds, and people can get it at Rock Paper Merch online, Merch in Motion, and I think it's actually coming out in the States on Deco, DEKO. I think that's the label, and Yeah, and also I've written a poetry book called Lean Into It, and ECW's got it. I don't know when they're going to put it out. I think they're intending to put out this other thing that I was talking about earlier, 10 Telecaster Tales, which is going to be a book and a record. So I don't think we'll make vinyl, but I think we're going to do a limited edition of the book with maybe a leather cover or an embossed leather cover, printed on really, beautiful stock paper. And then in the back, it'll have a CD. And then, once we sell out that initial run, it'll be a regular kind of book that you can buy at Indigo Chapters or whatever. And then it'll just have a download code. You can go and you can download the music. But if you wanted to have it in a, high res kind of, FLAC lossless leader, I don't know what you call it, those kinds of files, that would be the initial run, and the book will be they'll all be autographed, that kind of a thing, 10
put me down for a sign. Put me down for a sign number 1.
Okay.
I'd love to. I'd love to have that. That's really cool. And you got some trading cards coming out with song lyrics, right?
Well, that's in the Diamonds package. If people buy the, and I think they're almost at the end of that run, so they'd have to get on it in a hurry. It came out as a gatefold kind of album that had the CD in one side, the vinyl album, and colored vinyl in the other side, and it had a lenticular poster, which was like a 3D kind of poster with me with my guitar in my face, and another poster that was the cover printed on nice stock and with an autograph. I autographed I think 400, something like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think there's a set of, as you say, postcard photographs, a series that has never been put out before, and little guitar picks for each album. The 3 albums that I made after I left Triumph, which were on Duke Street Records, I got those masters back now. So that's where they pulled the hard rock songs from in order to make the compilation with it on there from back in the day. And then these guitar picks. And so, yeah, so it's a whole bundle of stuff, but I think they're almost sold out now.
Where do people go to pick that up if it's still available?
I say Rock Paper Merch. Yeah, RPM.
Rock Paper Merch. Okay.
Yeah, and if they just go, if you Googled Rock Paper Merch Rik Emmett, you'll go right to the page where you'd find it and you can order it.
Awesome. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure having you here on the show, Rik. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for toughing out the internet stuff. Appreciate it. I'm Kenny. You're not. This has been the Indie Show. Have a great ending to your week,